Hey you guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we're talking topwater. Everything from poppers to frogs. What you need to know for spring and summer topwater fishing. I have been thinking about this video all through winter, just waiting for topwater time to get here so that we could really dive in and take a look at topwater together. Unfortunately, we are stuck on the bank. I would do anything for this video to be out on the lake right now. I would love to take you guys out, throw a frog, throw a walking bait, throw a Whopper Plopper, and get some giant blow-ups. But our lake, like many of you, is completely shut down. We are locked out from the water right now. The content that you guys have been watching, the videos that we've been putting out, Tim and I planned ahead and shot a lot of those videos before the closure so that we would still have videos going forward and we could keep bringing great new stuff for you guys. And we are going to continue doing so. But this video, this topwater video, I was waiting for topwater time. And unfortunately, we can't get out there. So here we go. Let's talk topwater. Since we can't throw it, we'll talk about it. The guys that don't want to dig in deep, you don't want all the details, you don't want to know every modification, you don't have the time to sit here and watch the next 20 or 30 minutes of a video, let's start out with you. We're going to keep this simple. From the moment bass will eat a topwater in the pre-spawn, before they get on beds, in a lot of lakes, bass will eat topwater, especially shallow lakes. From the moment they start eating topwater, all the way through the spawn, the post-spawn, and into summer, you could do everything you ever need to do with 3 baits. And they're not expensive baits. If you have a basic popper, an actual pop-R is probably the most popular. This is a D-pop. Another awesome choice. It's got some more detailed colors than a pop-R. If you have a basic popper for slow fishing, up in the holes, tight to cover, if you're on a clear water lake, out in open water too, it'll draw them up. But on a lake with some murkiness to it, that doesn't have that crazy visibility for right up tight to cover, a popper is a must. Next, a super spook. Specifically that one right there. If I could only have one, it would be Okie Shad. But a super spook, a walking bait. It's got a loud, deep rattle. It's got a good knock. You work it by twitching the rod. You get a good walk out of it. You can cover huge amounts of water with a super spook. Cover water, draw fish up because it is so loud and the sound is so deep. It'll pull fish up off the bottom from great distances. And then third is a Whopper Plopper. And a Whopper Plopper, if I could only have one size, I've gone back and forth on this because for years and years and years, the 130 size has been my favorite size of the Whopper Plopper. But as we've traveled around the country, some of my perspective has changed. You know, last year we had the opportunity, it was incredible, absolutely incredible. We fished in 23 states and 3 countries. I'm still mind blown about it. It was the most amazing experience with the family. But as a result, some of my perspectives have changed. You know, the more places you fish, the more different water bodies, types of water, locations, things change. So if I could only choose one size Whopper Plopper, it would be the 110 size. That guy right there. It's just more universal. It'll do more. Almost always when we're throwing a Whopper Plopper, it's that steady, straight retrieve. But this guy has the option to be ripped too. When we were down in South America fishing peacocks, you're ripping that thing. And it does an awesome job. It's almost like a wood chopper. The bigger sizes don't do it as well as that 110 size. So you can do anything with it. Fish it steady, fish it stop and go. But those 3 baits, if you have a popper, a good walking bait, and a Whopper Plopper, there's nothing you can't do. That really is all you need to know. Now that said, all you need to know is typically not where we leave off. Tim and I both love to fine tune our gear. We fine tune our equipment, we fine tune our fishing, and we fine tune our actual catching by dialing in patterns to try and catch every last fish that you can catch. Because you can go out with a super spook and you're gonna catch plenty of fish. But there are days that switching to another bait will step it up to a whole different category. Some days you might catch 1 or 2 extra fish. Sometimes you might catch 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times as many fish by changing sound. And that's how we get into the more complicated stuff. So for those of you that want some more info, I'm going to share with you my favorites, including a brand new bait that I've never talked about. It's not a new bait, but it's one that I haven't talked to you about. So let's start out with walking baits. Some of this information, if you watch all our videos, you've heard almost all of this scattered through other videos, but not all of it. So at one end of the spectrum, you've got the super spook for a walking bait. It's got that deep, heavy, loud rattle. It resonates really, really well in the water. At the other end of the spectrum, you have a Reaction Innovations Vixen. Super high-pitched, glass rattles, high-pitched, almost a tinny sound about it. Both are dynamite options. Some days, one of those is all they want. But there are 2 baits that I put in the middle, and for me, those 2 baits work far more often than the extremes. And these are those 2 baits, if I can untangle them here. One is a River to Sea Rover, which is the same body style as a Vixen, but it has an in-between sound to it. So it's got a knocker and glass rattles. So it's just a good all-around sound, and I find that that one is way more consistent. The other one is the Evergreen Shower Blows. Cupped face, but it's a walking style bait. The Rover is more of a gliding walk with that all-around sound, and it's just incredible. I mean, if I only had one topwater period, it would probably be a Rover. But both of these had a place. When I thought, what's my favorite walking bait? I couldn't talk to you about just one because both have such a powerful place in my arsenal. The other one, the Shower Blows, with its tighter walk and throwing more water, it throws water when you walk it, is another incredible choice. The Shower Blows comes in 3 sizes. My favorite is the middle size. The Rover comes in 2 sizes. My favorite is the larger size. Poppers. So many different poppers on the market. So many different baits that work great and do different things. But the one that always stands out for me is the smaller size of the Bubble Walker. That guy there, that smaller Bubble Walker, is a large popper compared to a regular profile popper. It's longer and it's much fatter. So it presents a more substantial meal to those fish. And that is a really good option. So for poppers, it's easy. I have a lot of poppers that I like. It's not like I carry just one. I have 2 boxes full of a lot of poppers because I am a tackle junkie, but at least I can admit it. But if I'm gonna reach in the box, hey, I need to throw a popper and I'm not even thinking about it, Bubble Walker every time. I just want you guys to have my confidence as you're trying to make a decision this spring. Where do I start? What do I throw? And we'll get to some tweaks here in a second. But when you're trying to decide what to do, I want you to know at least what we would grab for, so you have a starting point. Whopper Plopper. Again, I just told you in the beginning that the 130 has always been my favorite and is still definitely my favorite to catch giants. There's no question. But that 110 this past year, it has earned a home. The 110 is amazing. It was amazing when we were fishing for other species, ripping it as well as ripping it for bass. But it was also amazing last year when we went cross country. I kept this thing tied on in this color, bone. Prior to our trip across the country, bone was nowhere near my favorite topwater color. Not even in the realm of my favorite topwater color. Chartreuse is my personal favorite. Chartreuse followed by Ghost, followed by a solid. But bone, when we went across the South, the Midwest, and the South, there was no question that was the most consistent color everywhere that we went. We didn't even have to argue about it. I mean, we knew when we jumped on a new lake, if there was any sort of stain in that water at all, if it was anything short of 10 feet of visibility, that bone Whopper Plopper was going to catch those fish. So keep that in mind, because that's not my starting place normally. It's not my starting place here on my home lake, but when we travel now, it's always my starting place. So in a lot of places, and a lot of you live in a lot of different places, that is an amazing option. Now, on that same note, let's jump back over here, because we are talking spring into summer. Around the spawn, the bass spawn, the bluegill also spawn. And around the bass spawn, bluegill colors are always a great option. So do not overlook bluegill unless you are in really murky water. You know, if you're in Oklahoma on a stained lake and it's always dingy water, it just never seems to really clear up, don't worry about throwing a ghost bluegill color. But if you're anywhere else where you've got bass in a shallow water lake where there are a lot of panfish present, don't forget to throw a bluegill color all the way into the spring. That goes for your Whopper Plopper, it goes for your walking bait, it goes for your frogs, everything. Do not overlook bluegill. Most of the year, not my favorite color. But spring to summer transition, it needs to be in there. And that brings us to frogs. So frogs, I've got two. The first one, the River to Sea Bullywah 2, 65 size. If you watched our videos in the summertime at all, it is not a surprise that is my favorite frog. Tim and I both. Favorite frog, and in that color. That's the little Allen color. Bright chartreuse. I said just a minute ago, my absolute favorite color topwater is chartreuse. It applies even more to a frog. Anytime I'm going frogging, if I have a choice, I start with chartreuse and then I build from there. But chartreuse is always the starting point. It's a bold, bright, aggressive color. Oftentimes you throw the frog in and around thick vegetation. That bright, bold color is easy for them to spot, and those fish just come for it. I love that color. The other frog I want to talk to you about is this little guy. If you watched last summer's videos, you guys saw as it was happening. This is the Jackal Kayara. All these baits, by the way, I'm going to link them down in the video description for you. I'll give you favorite colors, favorite sizes for every single one of them. Little Jackal Kayara. If you guys were watching the frog videos last summer, look how much smaller it is than my favorite frog. Little tiny guy. You guys watched over the course of 3 or 4 videos as I fell in love with this frog. I caught numbers on it. I caught great big bass on it. Big ones that you wouldn't think would eat a little tiny frog. They mowed it down. What I discovered was that in our lake where there's a lot of pressure and a lot of people throw a frog, I mean, every single boat that's out there in the summertime has got frogs tied on. And by going to a smaller frog, I found a more consistent bite. And I think that will benefit you guys as well. Now, pond guys, bank fishermen, a little frog. What's nice about a frog is it doesn't get caught on everything, but a little frog, I think, will get you more bites. It will, a fish that comes up and looks at the big frog and doesn't know if they're going to eat that will still eat a small one more often. And you can also walk it even tighter. Both of these walk incredibly well, but this one is covering less water while it's doing it. So where you have more, you're more limited. You don't have as many places to fish. Covering that water slower makes a big difference, where you really pick it apart. I think this year that little frog will be a big player for a lot of people. So I wanted to bring it up now, going into the season. You guys know the lakes are going to open back up at some point. We are going to do a lot of topwater fishing together. There will be more topwater videos. There'll be more frog videos, more walking bait videos. But right now, we're stuck. So I just want to help you get prepared and be ready. Now, two more baits, or two more things. We're gonna save the new bait for last. But here's a quick tip for you guys that I haven't really talked about before, and I think it's really important. A lot of times with walking baits, they come with 3 hooks. Almost all of them. 3 hooks. Which is what I prefer. I prefer 3 hooks because sometimes those fish will come up and slash them and they miss. The more hooks you have, the more likely you are to catch something on those fish. But in order to get 3 hooks to float a small topwater, most companies go to a pretty small, pretty light wire hook. If you're in the South, if you're out in California, if you're somewhere that's got a lot of big fish, or you're just on a lake where you know you've got a shot at a big one, do yourself a favor, take the middle hook off and put bigger hooks front and back and stronger hooks. So I take all 3 hooks off and then I switch out Owner ST56. That's the 3X hook. Same hook that we use on an S-Waver, same hook we use on a lot of swim baits. If you put 3 of them on there, it would completely screw up the action of the bait. It wouldn't walk right, it wouldn't do what the things that you need it to do. But by dropping down to 2, even though they're heavier wires, so they're a heavier hook, the bait can float them no problem. If you're around big fish, drop the middle hook, go to bigger, stronger hooks, and when you get the right fish hooked up, your odds of getting them in without bending a hook skyrocket. Now last but not least is this guy, the iLoud. It's basically a small wake bait and not a bait that I've talked about before, but I started playing with them last fall. We threw them again when we were down in the jungle for all sorts of different species, started throwing them for bass, but it's basically a small wake bait. It's jointed, so a small wake bait, plus it's got a blade on the back, bill on the front. So as a wake bait, you've got that bill digging, that tail kicking, pushing water. Then you've got that blade in the back spinning, giving it a really, really unique sound. It's also got a knocker in it. That knocker is loud, really loud. For the size of the bait, it's obnoxious. Those 3 things together make it a unique bait. It's got size 2 hooks on it, so it'll catch a big fish. But what makes this bait really interesting is that it hunts. And that's why I bring it up for you. That's what makes it different. That's what makes it special. I think that a lot of you guys that want to jump down the rabbit hole, that want to get detailed, that want to dial in your fishing, could benefit from this guy. Because it's not that different than most wake baits that are on the market, right? They get up, they kick, they move some water, they throw a nice V on the surface, and fish love them. But we know from square bills, because it's not that different than a square bill either, that a square bill that tracks perfectly gets far less bites than one that's deflecting and bumping and jumping and moving. Those elicit strikes from fish way more often. So this guy, just on a steady retrieve, does not maintain that slow swim. It's not doing that at all. It's very aggressive, very fast, but it breaks cadence constantly. So it's coming at you, and then it's over here, and then it's over here, and then it's back, and then it's over here. And a bait that will change like that on its own is special. So as soon as I realized that it had an action like that, first couple times I threw it was in the dark. I didn't even have any idea that it was doing that. First time I saw it in the daylight, I knew that bait was special. Any bait that will hunt is a bait worth putting a little bit of time into. So I just wanted to add that one to the mix. So guys, if you're a basic, don't worry about getting too crazy, you want some simple baits that will be consistent and work everywhere, we've got them. 3 baits for you. And I'll link those first. For the guys that want to know the details of what we're throwing and why, we've got another 7 baits for you. Guys, again, I wish I could take you out on the water today. I really do. We would have a blast together. We've got perfect conditions. The water's warmed up. The bass are up shallow. The grass is growing. They would eat this stuff. It hurts. But this will pass soon. We'll get back to normal. We'll all be out there catching those fish, and you're going to be more prepared because of it. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.